QQ here. I'm here to make an intro video about the consumer revolt and scandal called GamerGate. I know there's a lot of this type of video out there, but they tend to leave out some linkages I consider pretty critical. Also, there's been some information that came out recently that helps shine a light on what was going on in the early days. Assisting me with visual aids is Johnny D. He put together the video component for us, so thanks Johnny D, I couldn't do it without you.
Games journalism. We go way back. When I was just a kid, my friend, he had a subscription to Nintendo Power. Remember Nintendo Power? Yeah, his brothers and I, we'd pass around each issue, we'd read every article, we'd be wowed by every grandma quality image collage, and we'd all join in on the verbal fellatio of Nintendo's saviors, Shigeru and Reggie. The games industry has grown since then into a multi-billion-dollar one. It's bigger than the film industry, and of course, games journalism grew up along with it into the respectable institution that it is today.
Well, thanks for sitting down with us, and before you go, do you have any advice out there for aspiring game journalists?
Yeah, I mean, my advice is the same that I tell everyone is, buy Mountain Dew, you buy Doritos, you'll get a code, you go to doxp.com or doritosxp.com, enter that code, link it to your gamer tag, and then you're going to get some experience in the gaming news.
Yeah, about that. All that's really changed is who the journalists decide to suck off now. Honestly, I used to be an avid reader of Rock, Paper, Shotgun, so I can say confidently that they now mostly prefer to verbally wank each other. But that's not the only incestuous relationship in the gaming press. Remember when Jeff Gerstmann was fired from GameSpot because he dared to give Kane and Lynch a bad review while the publishers were advertising on their site? Or how about when budding games journalism site Polygon received $750,000 from Microsoft to make a documentary about how great Polygon is? Yeah, that was a little weird. But the biggest new trick that the old dog of games journalism learned was hating their consumers. That's right, they began to dislike gamers, the hardcore fans, the people putting food on their table. I remember back in the Nintendo Power days, when they paused for long enough to take the Nintendo cock out of their mouth, they'd actually, and this is going to sound a little bit radical, they'd actually come to the defense of the gaming community. Well, we can put those days behind us now too. Gamers are entitled because they want to talk about how terrible the ending of Mass Effect really was. Gamers are whiny and uncultured because they don't respect the true value to society represented by masterpieces like the walking simulator Gone Home. Gaming culture is toxic because they use problematic language when trash-talking online. But through all this, us gamers persevered. We needed to get our reviews from somewhere, right? And their disdain for gaming culture was just that, disdain. It hadn't erupted into outright hatred yet. And here we get to what I'm sure you're all here for. For some of you, this is ancient history by now, but if this is your first introduction to the topic, I'm gonna warn you in advance, it's a clusterfuck. So, what kicked all this off? Well, here I'm gonna tell a little white lie. See, part of what turned this entire issue into a massive clusterfuck was due to identity politics. Gender politics specifically. So, I'm gonna obscure the gender of one of the participants for as long as I can get away with it. I can't do it forever, but I'm gonna try to keep it up for as long as possible. So, now to talk about Depression Quest. Depression Quest was a game created by indie developer Joey Wynn. It was a controversial game because poor Joey was supposedly harassed by members of a Chan-style image board called Wizard Chan. Wizard Chan was a community for depressed virgin men, and according to Joey, they had some sort of problem with him and his game. The gaming press jumped all over this, of course, because it fit with their narrative and disdain for gaming culture. So, poor Joey, victim of harassment over his revolutionary text adventure about depression. So, it turns out Joey was not quite such a spotless figure for the indie games community or the games press to rally around. Joey's ex-girlfriend decided to publish a tell-all WordPress blog about their relationship. They often call Joey's partner a jilted ex who published this tell-all blog out of revenge. This is used as a straw man to paint us all as people just interested in petty relationship drama. Now, if you actually read the blog instead of just swallowing the half-digested puke that journalists vomit into your mouth, the blog was not created out of spite. It was a form of call-out. See, call-outs are something that the modern internet activist community uses to outline bad behavior, and as much disdain as I have for them, in this case it certainly seems more justified than most. The behavior detailed was some pretty bad abuse. Basically, Joey was cheating on his partner with 5 other women, and was gaslighting his partner over it to try and convince her that she was imagining it all. But really, I'm not here to talk about Joey's infidelity. That's an issue between Joey and his partner, and not important in the grand scheme of things. What is important is that it uncovered widespread corruption and collusion within the gaming press. See, among the people that Joey was accused of sleeping with was a games journalist. And not just any games journalist. This one had given positive press to Joey on 2 occasions. Yeah, that scarecrow's back again. The people trying to cover up the scandal often misquote us, saying that we claim that Joey was sleeping around for positive reviews, and then they conveniently point out that the journalist never actually wrote a review. Well, this is the stupidest straw man yet. If you go back and watch their early coverage on the controversy, they always claim that the journalist gave positive coverage, not a positive review. So, was that coverage positive? Well, look here at this article. 50 games were greenlit on Steam, and her friend and future lover Joey's game was called out as the standout one from among the lot. The screenshot in the article is of Depression Quest. The other article is even more insidious, and I don't think it has gotten enough coverage, so let me detail that here. See, Joey likes shutting down game jams. He's tried to do it twice so far. The first time, it was the most expensive game jam in history, sponsored by Mountain Dew. Now, most people who participated in the game jam aren't telling us what really happened because there was a non-disclosure agreement. One of the few people who have broken their NDA to talk about it, Joey is one of them, and this article is one of the few that we have on what happened. And it is heavily skewed to portray Joey in a positive light. So basically, Joey was somehow involved in the destruction of a $400,000 game jam, and the main source of information we have on it is someone who is so cozy with Joey that they found themselves in bed together. Wow, nothing suspicious here at all. And people involved in making this game jam lost their jobs over this. To be honest, this game jam, it sounded pretty stupid, and it might have been a failure anyway, but we'll never know the unbiased version of the story until the NDAs start wearing off. This begins a phase I like to call the 3 horsemen of the YouTube-ocalypse. Now, these 3 figures are controversial. Many who are part of this consumer revolt don't like to promote them or disagree with some of their opinions or with some of the actions that they've taken. However, it's hard to deny that they were influential early on. What they had to say, or more importantly, the attempts to stop them from saying it, was one of the things that kicked this whole mess into high gear. This next part was pretty chaotic. At the time, nobody quite knew what was happening, what with all the censorship. A YouTuber by the name of MundaneMatt, he made a video about the scandal on August 17th. Someone claiming to be Joey submitted a DMCA claim against it on the same day. The video did use a screenshot from Depression Quest as a backdrop, but that's clearly fair use, making the DMCA claim invalid. On the 18th of August, another YouTuber, one considerably more well-known who goes by the name TotalBiscuit, wrote a TwitLonger post about how dangerous DMCA abuse is to YouTube personalities. Basically, using the DMCA like this is pretty scummy. You can get your channel taken away if you get too many claims against you. His TwitLonger was submitted to Reddit on the 19th with the title, TotalBiscuit discusses the state of games journalism, Steam Greenlight, ethics, DMCA abuse, and Depression Quest. And it covered all of those topics. It was submitted to R Gaming, an appropriate subreddit for all things considered. Over 24,000 Reddit comments were censored from the submission. In fact, you had to dig pretty far to find a comment that was not deleted. We know now that one of the mods of our games, El Chupa Cupcake, reached out to Joey and they had a private conversation whose contents are still unknown. Now, let me let you in on a little secret. Just recently, the Reddit moderators' IRC logs were leaked. First thing to know, the moderators of many major subreddits work together in a chat room in secret, and one of the things that they decided to do was engage in heavy-handed censorship of anything to do with Joey Wynn. On the day of the mass deletion, Reddit moderator iKingJeremy claims that the first 100 or so posts in the thread were all against the rules. Every single one of them. He felt overwhelmed, thought he would not be able to remove possible doxing fast enough, saw that it was headed for the front page, and decided to lock it down by setting the auto-moderator to just delete everything. Then they come up with this harebrained conspiracy theory that once other subreddits heard that the censorship was going on, they hopped in to post more and inflate the post numbers. They also have a short debate about whether it was right for El Chupa Cupcake to publicly message Joey on Twitter, and conclude that he did nothing wrong. So we now know that Reddit moderators were working together in secret to silence discussion of the topic. Good job, guys. You stopped it right in its tracks. It's not like people are still talking about it 6 months later or anything.
Next, the third and final horseman did his part. Internet Aristocrat, who has long since stopped caring about the scandal, made a series of videos covering it.
Now, Internet Aristocrat, like the other two horsemen, was not a journalist. His exposés were largely accurate, but they were presented in a tabloid style that might rub some oversensitive crybabies the wrong way. And evidently they did, as when it was posted to Reddit, there was more censorship, this time by the administrative staff. They declared the whole thing to be a 4chan raid and shadow banned anyone who got upvoted in that thread. And what about 4chan, the last bastion of open discussion on the internet? Well, 4chan decided that they wanted a piece of the censorship action too. Discussion of the Joey Wynn scandal was banned. Reddit, 4chan, well, what else? Well, forums and gaming sites banned it too. Something Awful, Penny Arcade, NeoGAF, you name it, they censored it. Just about the only places it was not banned was on the escapist forums, on an up-and-coming image board website known as 8chan or Infinite Chan, on IRC channels, and on subreddits not under the control of the then-secret Reddit mod cabal. Oh, and Twitter. Twitter ended up being quite the important medium for organizing. Actor Adam Baldwin, also known as Jane from Firefly, he tweeted out Internet Aristocrat's video with the hashtag GamerGate. This was the first use of the term.
This hashtag ended up being a rallying cry for people who wanted to discuss corruption in the games press, and the name for the various scandals that were uncovered. People opposed to discussing the corruption and in favor of the censorship tend to be called anti-GamerGate, or more simply, anti-gamers.
So, not a single story was published about this scandal in a gaming publication. It's almost like they were all working together behind the scenes and agreeing to keep it on the down low. Oh, wait. They were all working together behind the scenes and agreeing to keep it on the down low. More on that later. Now, what the gaming press did do is declare that gamers are over.
And all on the same day, too.
Yes, it was a terrible day to be a gamer, according to them. That's because gamers are terrible people, you know. We're childish, we don't know how to dress or behave, we're obtuse shit-slingers, wailing hyperconsumers, we know nothing about human social interaction and professional life. Yep, pack it up, gamers, it's over. You're not welcome in the games industry anymore. Leigh Alexander and other game journalist buddies told me so. Now I have to break the illusion a little bit. So far, I've been talking about Joey Wynn, the dude who developed Depression Quest. Well, there's the little white lie. Depression Quest was not developed by a dude named Joey Wynn. It was developed by a woman with a similar name, who we will call Miss Q. See, she considers people using her real name to be incitement to harass her, so we just won't do that. As you can see, the gender of this game developer was not in the slightest bit important up until now. The journalist engaging in the corruption is more important, and I can name him now. Nathan Grayson. Nathan Grayson. Nathan fucking Grayson. Miss Q, Joey, they're not important. Nathan Grayson is the corrupt one. He should have recused himself when writing about a friend, or at least put a disclaimer. The point is, the scandal was still just as scandalous no matter how you lay out the genders. It still makes just as much sense if the developer was a guy. But it is important to reveal the real gender now, because what these articles alleged is probably the reason that this whole thing is still going over half a year later. See, Miss Q was a woman, and a feminist, supposedly. So by discussing the scandal she was a part of, gamers were all misogynists. Sexists.
And worse things, too. There's this narrative that the media likes to push that if you dislike any one feminist, it's a sign that you hate every other type of person that intersectional feminists claim to stand for.
Yeah, that's right, gamers. You aren't just socially awkward consumerist whores and shitlords, you hate women too. Now, if you ask any of the game journalists involved in this slanderous hatred to explain themselves, they'll say things like, "Oh, we weren't talking about all gamers, just the bad ones who behave in these toxic, problematic ways." Come on, don't let them feed you this bullshit. Ask them, which gamers specifically? Where are these toxic gamers? And when they can't give you a single concrete example, realize that that's because they don't really have any specific examples. They were generalizing. They were talking about gamers in general. And if you are a part of the gaming community, that includes you. So, welcome to being branded as a racist, a sexist, a misogynist, literally worse than ISIS, a hate group, and so on. Also, you may not notice it, but some gaming websites and magazines are slowly phasing out the word gamer in favor of player. Keep your eyes out. Constant vigilance! Gamers, though, we know this tactic. We've seen it before. If you're playing your favorite game online, Dota 2, CSGO, Team Fortress 2, if you start winning, then the other team will start calling you names. And the more you're winning, the more creative and detached from reality the names become. We were winning. We were onto something. And so we did what gamers did best. We ignored the insults, and we dug in, and we researched, and we persevered. They may have declared gamers dead, but hey, we have extra lives, right? This whole time, we've been turning up more corruption in the gaming press. Not a single gaming publication dared to cover it when Joey, Miss Q, that person, attempted to shut down a second game jam. A feminist game jam this time. It was using a different definition of transgender than what she liked. We also discovered that other Kotaku writers, like Patricia Hernandez, enjoyed writing about friends too without disclosure. I'm gonna pronounce this wrong, but Danielle Ridno, the person who wrote that 10 out of 10 review on Polygon for Gone Home, they were good friends, in their own words, with the person who scored the music for that game. They didn't disclose a thing. And Ben Kuchera of Polygon, everyone's favorite gremlin, was writing about people he was sponsoring on Patreon without disclosure. Hey, at least when I read Nintendo Power, I knew who they were circle jerking with. It was right there in the title. Nintendo Power. Nintendo. Games journalists these days, they don't like to tell you who they're in a relationship with. Business, financial, sexual, or emotional. And if you ask them to disclose this stuff, they have a thing or two to call you now to shut you up. So after these articles came out, gamers got mad. We still have yet to get an apology for being called these horrible things. In fact, these so-called journalists doubled down. We're still, to this very day, being branded as racist, sexist, misogynist, homophobic haters of women, trying to drive them out of the gaming industry. The revolt probably won't stop until we do get an apology. After publication of these articles, the GamerGate hashtag exploded on Twitter. Gamers decided that they'd had enough, and that advertisers deserved to be informed about how publications like Gamasutra, Polygon, and Kotaku were slandering their audience. So an operation was started to inform several advertisers on Gawker, Vox, and UPM sites about their terrible behavior. An operation was created called Disrespectful Nod to send emails to the advertisers. There was a lot of success early on, with large companies pulling out. Some of them did come back eventually, like Intel. It is also suspected, but not confirmed, that there was a lot of silent pullouts after the media staged a vocal backlash against some of the advertisers pulling out. Look at what Gawker called Intel. Look at it. Either way, just eyeing the advertising landscape on these sites today, you might notice that they're relying much more on services like AdSense and are getting much fewer direct ads. This was a big success in my opinion and continues to pay off. Keep sending emails, folks. We've had other victories too.
Since then, The Escapist, Eurogamer, PC Gamer, and IGN of all places have come out with new ethics policies to address our concerns.
And our complaints to the FTC about native advertising encouraged them to clarify the rules on the practice. We now get clearer indicators about native ads on these sites and get to see how many articles on Kotaku and Polygon are just paid shilling. So that's a summary of the first 2 months. Things were about to get even crazier. Why? The specter of identity politics. Tune in for part 2 where we discuss Not Your Shield, Game Journo Pros, identity politics, and people injecting themselves into the debate.